Brothers, sisters, my beloved stars, it is no coincidence that you are here today. Today, under a silent sky that seems to hold a secret, a story begins that will shake your spirit and open your eyes to what is to come. September 13th will not be an ordinary date, but a threshold marked on the celestial clocks, a point in time where the human and the divine will intersect. Perhaps you've already felt the first whispers of this mystery in your own life. Sleepless nights where your heart beats with an inexplicable heaviness, strange dreams where light and shadow intertwine, leaving you with the feeling of having been visited by something that transcends logic. Animals that grow restless for no apparent reason, birds that suddenly fall silent in the middle of the morning, as if hearing a sound our ears can't detect. Don't ignore these signs, Lucifer. Don't mistake them for coincidences. Everything that happens in the visible is first woven into the invisible, and the heavens, for weeks, have been setting the stage for something that will change history. September 13th approaches like a trumpet that has yet to sound, but whose vibration already makes the earth silently tremble. I want you to understand something from the beginning. This message is not meant to instill fear. Fear paralyzes, but warning illuminates. It is a call to be awake, to recognize that the times we live in are not a simple passing of days, but a river flowing toward a prophetic sea. You did not arrive here by accident. If these words reach your ear, it is because you are marked to hear what millions will ignore. Stars, write Amen in the comments if you feel heaven is speaking at this moment. Declare the name of your country so that together we can raise a map of light on earth. Let the rulers, the powerful and the mockers say what they will, but we know there is a spiritual current that cannot be stopped. In many places around the world, small signs have already begun, those that seem like nothing to the distracted, but to the awake are like the chimes of a bell in the silence. Bells that have begun to ring alone in the early morning, untouched. Lights in the sky that appear suddenly and disappear as if piercing a veil. Scents of flowers in deserted places where not a single rose has ever grown. Ordinary people who suddenly feel the impulse to kneel and cry without understanding why. Isn't it strange that so many things coincide? Isn't it suspicious that the press remains silent about these phenomena or ridicules them as mere superstitions? That's the usual strategy. Silence what bothers the system. Label what comes from heaven as madness. Distract with banal news what might stir up the crowds. But you and I know that not everything can be hidden, because when the heavens decide to speak, even the stones cry out. September 13th has been written into the divine calendar. A date sealed not by men, but by heaven itself. And what happens that day will divide humanity in two. Those who remain in the light, steadfast and faithful, and those who surrender to the darkness, mocking it until the last moment. I won't reveal what has been revealed yet. That will come in its own time, because the mystery isn't delivered all at once, but in waves that prepare the heart. Today, I can only tell you not to ignore the signs. Prepare your home, prepare your soul, and don't allow the noise of the world to drown out the voice that resonates within you. Lucifer, stay until the end, because in this revelation there will be a prayer so powerful that it will cover your house like a shield. And before the prophetic word is fully revealed, you will experience a shaking in the depths of your spirit. Listen carefully. The silence that is coming will not be an empty silence, but a silence pregnant with revelation. Stars, I want you to take a deep breath before listening to these words any further, because what I'm about to relate is not mere literature or an exercise in imagination. These are signs that are already occurring and that point toward September 13th as a day marked by heaven. Over the past few months, ordinary men and women have shared testimonies that, though scattered, form a disturbing mosaic. In small villages and large cities, in open fields and on lonely coasts, the same phenomena have been repeated like an echo traveling from one continent to another. At dawn, entire herds of animals have run for no reason, as if fleeing from something invisible. In some regions, sounds have been heard deep underground, like a distant drum, making the window panes vibrate. No one can explain them. Some say they are simple movements of tectonic plates. Others remain silent because they don't want to be labeled as alarmists. But those who look with eyes of faith know that the earth itself trembles when a divine announcement is about to be fulfilled. In the skies, lights that don't correspond to stars have crossed the night in absolute silence. They are not airplanes, nor are they satellites, because they move with a strange rhythm, as if someone were guiding them so that they would reveal themselves to the watchful and hide from the inattentive. In several parishes, priests have reported that, during Mass, the scent of incense was perceived in temples where not a single candle had been lit. And in humble chapels, plaster virgins began to weep tears that science has been unable to explain. The most striking thing, Lucifer, is that each of these manifestations seems aimed at awakening the conscience, not of the powerful, but of the simple, of those who listen in silence, of those who pray in the early morning hours asking for answers. It is to you, brother and sister, that we are speaking. That is why you cannot dismiss these signs as mere coincidences. Heaven never trifles with the faith of its children. And yet, as these signals multiply, the world responds with mockery and contempt. The newscasts fill the screens with spectacle, sports, and political controversies, while hiding what truly matters. Scientists come out with explanations that change every week. First they say they are gases in the atmosphere, then they say they are optical illusions, then they say they are simply tricks of the tired mind. But the more they try to deny it, the stronger the certainty becomes in the hearts of the stargazers. Don't you remember how the prophets were once ridiculed? How they mocked Noah as he built an ark in the midst of a drought? History repeats itself. The world laughs until the water begins to cover its feet. In the privacy of homes, however, something different is happening. Families that had stopped speaking to each other are gathering around the table again. Marriages, worn down by years of distance, are beginning to rekindle the flame of prayer together. Young people who had never touched a Bible open it with trembling hands and tears in their eyes. Because when the heavens begin to shake the earth, the first thing that happens is not destruction but conversion. Stars, write the name of your city in the comments, because each word will be like a beacon illuminating the map. Declare, "Here I am," so that heaven knows you are not indifferent spectators, but alert sentinels awaiting the signal. It's no coincidence that September 13th appears repeatedly in so many visions and testimonies. Although the powers of the world try to silence it, the date is marked on the spiritual calendar, and those who watch in prayer feel in their bones that something is approaching. In some regions, even the clocks seem to have stopped at the same time in different homes, marking a moment frozen in time. Church bells have rung in the early morning without anyone touching them, awakening entire villages with a deep, shuddering sound. And those who were awake at the time felt the air become heavy, as if the entire world were holding its breath. Don't ignore these warnings, Lutero. Don't fall into the temptation of saying it's a coincidence or it's a collective suggestion, because when the signs are so numerous and so similar in distant places, we are no longer talking about coincidence, but rather a universal language that comes from on high. September 13th will not arrive like a sudden bolt of lightning, but like a wave that has already begun to move from the depths, a wave that advances silently, but will soon be felt in its full force. Stay with me until the end, because only then will you understand the weight of what will be revealed. And remember, signs are not an end in themselves, but a prelude to what is to come. Brothers, sisters, stars of heaven, what is happening in these days is not a simple accumulation of isolated events. It is a mirror that reflects the spiritual state of all humanity. While some awaken and raise their gaze to heaven, others sink deeper and deeper into disbelief and mockery. September 13th is here, and although no one can say they weren't warned, many will prefer to cover their ears like someone who doesn't want to hear the thunder that heralds a storm. This division isn't measured in geographical borders, but in hearts. Two paths are opening up, that of those who prepare silently with prayer and faith, and that of those who give in to sarcastic laughter, denying the obvious. The testimonies are increasingly strong. In several places, entire families gather spontaneously to pray in the early morning. Young people who had never shown any spiritual interest are now the first to light a candle, to sing a song, to call others to join in. An atmosphere of vigilance permeates the air, as if souls sense that the midnight hour is approaching, and that only those who have oil in their lamps will be able to withstand the darkness. But at the same time, the counter-reaction is multiplying. Media outlets mock us with sarcastic headlines. Another apocalyptic prediction. September 13th will be just another day. Scientists interviewed on television programs claiming everything can be explained by gases, optical illusions, and mass suggestion. Politicians advising us to stay calm while diverting attention to irrelevant debates. Isn't it curious, Luceros, how all the powerful seem to agree in denying the same thing? Why so much insistence on ridiculing what, according to them, is unimportant? The answer is simple. Because they fear what they can't control. They fear that the people's faith will be awakened and that their system, built on lies and manipulation, will falter. But we know that the more they deny, the more the flame grows. Every time someone mocks, another heart is ignited. Every time a newscast falls silent, a testimony emerges in the street. It's as if the darkness, in its attempt to hide the light, ends up making it shine even brighter. In the homes, the contrasts are painful. Parents trying to convince their children that all this is absurd, while the young people respond with tears they don't understand. Spouses arguing because one believes and the other laughs. Siblings separating because they can't bear to hear the warnings. September 13th is shaking homes before it arrives, dividing those who walk in the same blood but not in the same faith. And yet, in the midst of division, scenes emerge that shake the soul. An old man who had never spoken in public suddenly stands up in a square and begins to proclaim that heaven visited him in his dreams. Little children who wake up in the middle of the night saying they heard bells, even though there is no church nearby in their village. Entire groups, without knowing each other, feel the impulse to kneel at the same time, as if guided by the same spirit. Stars, can you feel it? The whole world is vibrating, like a taut string about to snap. And when it snaps, there's no turning back. Write in the comments, "Here I am, Lord," because your every word is a spark that ignites the fire of collective faith. Do not be silent, because your voice is part of this movement that no human power can stop. The most striking thing is how mockery and faith coexist in the same space. On the same street, while some set up improvised altars, others drive by in cars laughing and shouting insults. In the same office, while some pray silently at their desks, others ridicule with vulgar jokes. This is the invisible battle, not between armies with weapons, but between souls who choose the light and souls who surrender to the shadows. Remember, Lucifer, conversion always precedes the miracle. Before heaven shakes the earth, souls are being shaken. And although many prefer to close their eyes, those who remain with their lamps lit will witness what September 13th will bring. Don't get ahead of yourself yet. The mystery will be revealed in due time. For now, what you should know is that every tear shed, every candle lit, every word written in faith is building an invisible wall of protection. And while the world divides, heaven watches. Because it's not about numbers or crowds, but about fidelity. It doesn't matter if you're one in your family, one in your neighborhood, one in your city. What matters is that you don't deny the light when the time comes. Stars, stay alert, Because even if the world laughs, September 13th will not ask permission to burst into history. Stars, we are entering a point where tension can no longer be hidden. September 13th is approaching, and with it all of humanity seems to be facing a mirror that reveals who we really are. This is not about theories or speculation. It is about the way each heart responds to the signals that multiply around us. In small towns, where nothing out of the ordinary ever happened, residents began organizing spontaneous vigils. There were no posters, no public calls, no radio or television announcements. Simply, the same feeling invades dozens of families at the same time, and they gather around a square, praying under the stars, with candles illuminating the night. No one planned it, but everyone feels they must do it. Meanwhile, in larger cities, the contrasts are more striking. Entire groups of young people have decided to proclaim their faith in parks and avenues, singing songs in the middle of the night. But at the same time, mockers appear, filming them with their phones to laugh at them on social media. Videos that attempt to ridicule the spiritual, but which, paradoxically, awaken thousands who wonder why there is so much resistance to what supposedly means nothing. And this is where the battle becomes most evident, because this isn't about flesh and blood, but a spiritual struggle manifested in visible gestures. Parents who forbid their children from participating in vigils, and at the same time children who, crying, sneak out at dawn to be there. Co-workers who laugh out loud when they hear someone talk about September 13th, but then, in private, feel fear when the lights in the sky appear outside their window. Bright stars, we cannot deceive ourselves. The world is becoming polarized. Every mockery, every denial, every attack strengthens those who remain steadfast. Because true faith is purified in the fire of contradiction. The early Christians knew this. The more they were persecuted, the more they multiplied. Today is no different. Every sarcastic laugh, every hurtful comment, every attempt to silence becomes a springboard that elevates bright stars to a more ardent faith. On the news, leaders speak of calm. There's nothing to worry about, they say, but their gestures convey nervousness. It's as if they know more than they're letting on, as if the warnings coming from around the world have passed through their offices and cabinets. And in secret, some of them consult priests, pastors, and visionaries, seeking answers they dare not give in public. What no one can deny is that miracles are beginning to overflow. A candle lit at a vigil that should have been extinguished by the rain continues to burn untouched. A terminally ill person, wheeled into a prayer square, rises with clumsy but steady steps. Bells ring in the middle of the night, unmoved by a human hand. Skeptics who came only to mock end up on their knees, crying like children, unable to explain what they feel. Stars, can you see the pattern? The shadow laughs, but the light responds with strength. The darkness mocks, but miracles multiply. And at every corner, small groups of faithful become living torches that illuminate entire streets. Write in the comments, Virgin Mary, cover us with your mantle, because each word is an invisible chain that unites us as a spiritual army. You are not alone. Millions of stars around the world write the same words, and that echo rises like incense to heaven. However, we cannot ignore the other side of the coin. With every miracle, more persecution also arises. In some places, authorities have attempted to break up prayer meetings, arguing that they are dangerous gatherings or baseless superstitions. And even if the faithful disperse for a few hours, faith reunites them. Because when fire comes from on high, no human decree can extinguish it. Some journalists mock those who believe in the designated date on air. But hours later, those same journalists wake up in the middle of the night with nightmares so intense they can't sleep. And without anyone knowing, they secretly call a priest or a friend of faith to ask for prayer. The shadow disguises itself as security, but deep inside, it trembles. All of this is just the beginning. September 13th will be the point at which the waters completely part. And while I won't yet reveal what will happen that day, nor which countries will be most impacted, I can tell you one thing. What is coming will forever divide history into a before and after. Lights stand firm. Because the contrast between faith and persecution is not a sign of weakness, but proof that the battle is real. And if the battle is real, so will be the victory of those who remain in the light. Stay with me, because the strongest is yet to be revealed. And remember, darkness always roars loudest just before it is defeated. Stars, what is happening before our eyes can no longer be hidden. The world may try to ridicule, the powerful may deny, the media may remain silent, but the miracles have become so numerous, so visible, that even the most skeptical begin to falter. And each of these miracles seems to be an announcement directing us toward a sealed date, September 13th. In remote villages where apparitions had never been reported, humble images of the Virgin began to weep real tears, collected in cloths by the faithful. Scientists sent to study the phenomenon were struck dumb, unable to offer a coherent explanation. Some of them, trained in logic and skepticism, ended up on their knees, tearfully confessing that they had never experienced anything like it. In hospitals, terminally ill patients have experienced inexplicable recoveries. Doctors accustomed to the coldness of diagnoses have had to acknowledge that something is happening beyond their control. A woman who had been unable to walk for months got out of bed at the precise moment when bells rang in her local church, untouched. A man who had lost his sight partially regained the light in his eyes after praying with his children around a candle that, inexplicably, wouldn't go out despite a thunderstorm. These aren't isolated rumors, Luceros. These testimonies are multiplying on different continents, as if a single invisible hand were sewing them to awaken faith. Coincidence? No. It's a universal language of heaven. Because when humanity runs out of answers, heaven speaks with signs that no one can deny. And yet, those who cling to the shadows seek to discredit it. Newspapers write headlines like paranormal phenomena or simple collective fraud. Governments issue statements speaking of mass psychological illusions. And experts argue endlessly on television programs. But the more they argue, the more certainty grows in humble hearts. Because those who have seen a miracle in their own home can no longer be convinced otherwise. Stars, write in the comments, Lord, do not leave us behind. Each word is a covenant we make in prayer, because this is not a message to frighten, but to prepare. We are not facing just any threat, but a prophetic climax that will shake us all. And the climax is approaching. September 13th will not be an empty date on the calendar. It is a day marked with fire in the spiritual history of the world. Everything we are witnessing, the bells ringing alone, the lights in the sky, the healed sick, the broken hearts, is merely the prelude. What's most striking is how even skeptics are being touched. Men and women who mocked for years now secretly approach the vigils, cloaked in the shadow of night, unable to admit in public what they feel inside. Some come with the intention of laughing and end up on their knees, weeping like children, confessing sins they had harbored for decades. It's as if heaven were dismantling the hardest walls, preparing hearts for what is to come. But don't think that everything is acceptance. On the contrary, the persecution is becoming more ferocious. In several countries, prayer meetings have been forcibly interrupted. Police have confiscated images, candles and Bibles, trying to extinguish what they consider a social danger. However, every attempt to silence the lights becomes a seed that sprouts tenfold more faith. Because the more they persecute, the hotter the fire burns. Stars, do not forget this. Miracles are not just signs to be admired, but urgent calls to conversion. Every tear shed for an image, every bell that rings by itself, every sick person who is healed is a direct invitation from heaven to return to the path. It is not spectacle, it is not curiosity, it is a warning of love before the great earthquake. September 13th will mark a line that cannot be crossed back in. There will be no neutrality. No one will be able to say, "I stood aside." On that day, humanity will be divided in two, those who chose the light and those who clung to the shadows. And every miracle before it is an outstretched hand so that no one can say they weren't warned. Stars, remain calm but not indifferent. Be watchful sentinels, not distracted spectators, because heaven has already decided to speak, and its voice will be heard. The silence that precedes the thunder is already here. The murmur of the earth, the tears of the images, the lights in the sky, all point in the same direction. And when the climax comes, there will be no refuge in money, power, science, or mockery. There will only be refuge under the mantle of the Virgin and the grace of God. Stay with me until the end, because in the next part we will begin to approach the moment of prophetic climax, where the mystery will reach its highest point. Stars, we have reached the threshold. Everything I have shared with you so far, the signs in heaven and on earth, the miracles that no one can deny, the increasing persecution, the division into homes and nations, has been preparation. Everything leads us toward a date etched in fire on the spiritual calendar. September 13th. We're not talking about just another day. This isn't superstition or market rumors. This day rises like a mountain in the midst of time, heralding a change that will mark generations. The sky has been approaching like a silent wave, and now that wave is about to break with all its force. In various regions of the world, visions and dreams coincide in surprising ways. Simple peasants, humble elders, young people who had never shown any spiritual interest, all have seen similar scenes. A heaven opening, a trembling in the earth, a profound silence followed by a roar that comes neither from storms nor from human armies. How can so many souls, without knowing each other, describe the same thing? Stars. There is no coincidence in this. It is the language of the Spirit, which speaks in ways that transcend distance and culture. The world, however, continues its game of distractions. While the faithful pray in squares and homes, the powerful hold meetings behind closed doors, trying to maintain control. But deep down, even among themselves, some tremble, because they know you can't hide the sun with your hands. And September 13th approaches like a clock that no one can stop. Listen carefully. That day will be a line of fire. Those who choose the light will feel an indescribable protection, a calm amidst the tremors. Those who cling to the shadow will experience the darkest emptiness. It will be the day when humanity will be divided not by political borders, but by the choice of each heart. On the eve, the atmosphere will already be different. The very air will weigh on the cities and countryside. There will be a strange silence, as if the entire world were holding its breath. The birds will be silent, the dogs will not bark, and even the clocks will seem to slow down. This silence will not be natural. It will be a warning from heaven, the prelude to the great shaking. Stars, write it in the comments, "I am ready." Because that declaration isn't just words on a screen, it's a spiritual seal that proclaims your faith before heaven and earth. Scientists, hard-pressed, will search for desperate explanations. Some will say it's an atmospheric phenomenon. Others will speak of tectonic activity. There will be those who attribute it to human conspiracies. But none of these explanations will succeed in silencing what our hearts will know deep down, that the heavens are speaking directly to humanity. September 13th will not be a day of indifference. No one will be able to say, "I didn't notice," because the signs will be so evident, so overwhelming, that even the most skeptical will feel something invisible surrounding them. It will be as if the veil between the visible and the invisible were torn for an instant, exposing the truth that was always there. Stars, do not fear. This message is not to paralyze, but to prepare. Those who stand firm in the faith will be like houses built on rock. They may be shaken, but they will not fall. Those who cling to pride and mockery will be like houses built on sand. The shaking will destroy them. I know you are waiting for the exact revelation, the message the Virgin Mary will deliver, and the countries that will be reached in a special way. But that revelation must still wait, because the mystery must mature in your heart before being spoken. When you indicate Lucifer, then I will open the seal and reveal the prophecy. For now, what you should know is this: September 13th will be a turning point. The world will be divided, light and shadow will clash, and you, Lucifer, will witness what heaven has prepared. Remain in prayer, strengthen your house, light your lamp. Because the midnight hour of the world is approaching, and only those who have oil in their lamps will be ready to receive the sign. Stay with me until the end. In the next part, we will approach the very edge of revelation, where the mystery will cease to be a whisper and become a clear voice. Stars, we have walked together a path of warnings, signs, and miracles. Now we are in the antechamber, at the very edge of mystery, where September 13th is no longer a distant date, but a door about to open. The spiritual air has become so charged that even those who never believed feel a strange weight on their hearts. It is as if the entire world has stopped, awaiting an announcement that will transform everything. In different corners of the planet, vigils are intensifying. They are no longer small, spontaneous gatherings. Now thousands gather in squares, churches, mountains, even in their own homes. The sound of prayer rises like a gentle but constant roar, an invisible chorus connecting entire cities and countries. No human organization can achieve such synchronicity. It is the Spirit who is uniting the lights in a single heartbeat. And the most surprising thing, Luceros, is that as faith grows, resistance also increases. Governments that until yesterday remained silent are now issuing urgent statements, asking the people to ignore rumors and false prophecies. Scientists in press conferences try to explain that miracles are merely psychosocial processes. But the more they talk, the more evident their impotence becomes, because the people are not nourished by theories, but by what they see with their own eyes. Candles that don't go out, sick people who are healed, bells that ring in the early morning. On the streets, the tension is palpable. In one neighborhood, some decorate their homes with images and candles, while others write graffiti insulting the faith. Within one family, some gather to pray, while others isolate themselves in their rooms, angry and sarcastic. It's a reflection of what is about to happen. Humanity split in two. Luceros, at this point, you must understand something crucial. The battle is no longer in the future. The battle has already begun. What we will see on September 13th will not be a beginning, but an outcome. Because every heart is already choosing its side, even without realizing it. Silence, indifference, mockery, those are also choices. And heaven takes them into account. Write in the comments, St. Michael, defend us in battle. Because we are in the midst of a spiritual war that is not fought with weapons or armies, but with faith, prayer, and fidelity. And your every word is a weapon of light that rises against the darkness. In several cities, priests and pastors have begun organizing 3-day vigils. Not by chance, but because they feel heaven is guiding them to prepare a spiritual mantle before the climax. And during these vigils, soul-stirring phenomena have been recorded. Little children who, in the middle of prayer, say they see luminous figures around the altar, bells ringing in exact synchrony in villages hundreds of miles apart, stars that shine with unusual intensity right at midnight and suddenly disappear as if passing through a veil. Stars, can you feel it? The veil separating the visible from the invisible has become so thin that it could tear completely at any moment. And when that happens, the mystery will no longer be a whisper, but a thunderclap. Don't get ahead of yourself. I won't reveal the full message or the countries targeted yet, because this mystery can only be unraveled at the right time. But listen, we're already on the brink. September 13th is just around the corner, and what happens that day will leave no one indifferent. Meanwhile, hearts prepare themselves in different ways. Some seek reconciliation with their families, asking for forgiveness for offenses held for years. Others give their possessions to the poor, convinced that it's not worth clinging to material things when eternity is calling. And others, sadly, harden themselves even further, mocking with a laughter that is actually a disguise to hide their fear. Stars, I want you to understand this. It doesn't matter if you're the only one in your family, at your job, or in your neighborhood. The important thing is that you remain steadfast, because even if you're surrounded by mockery and scorn, heaven sees you, and your faithfulness will be like a torch in the night. The atmosphere is already permeated with something different. Anyone walking the streets feels it, even if they can't explain it. The wind seems to carry messages. The silence of the animals becomes a sign. The clouds move with a strange rhythm, as if dancing to the beat of an invisible drum. Everything is preparing for an outcome that will shake the earth. Luceros, September 13th will not be just any day. It will be the day when hidden secrets will come to light. It will be the day when humanity will face its own truth. And you who are here listening to these words are part of that invisible army preparing in silence. Stay with me, because in the next part, the seal will be opened. The mystery will be revealed, and then you will know the message the Virgin Mary has saved for this time and the countries that will be reached in a special way. Stars, we have walked together through warnings, signs, miracles, and persecutions. We have felt the weight of silence, the shaking of the earth, the invisible roar that announces that something is about to happen. Now we are at the border, September 13th. This won't be just any day. It won't be just another date that fades away on the calendar. It will be the day humanity confronts its deepest reflection, the day the voice of heaven makes itself heard with irresistible force. It will be the moment when the mystery guarded for generations is revealed. But listen carefully. The prophecy and the designated countries will not yet be revealed here. That revelation will come only when you ask for it, when you are prepared to listen without reservation to what the Virgin Mary has to say. Until then, this threshold is a call to preparation. Look around you, Lucifer. Everything is aligned. Families feel the impulse to unite in prayer, even though they lived apart for years. Young people who had never knelt now raise their hands to heaven with tears in their eyes. The elderly who had lost hope now feel that their final days are full of meaning. It is as if all of humanity were being gathered on a single stage to witness a final act. The powerful may mock, the media may ridicule, scientists may keep silent about what they know. But there is one thing no one can stop: the certainty that burns in the hearts of the simple. For the humble recognize what the wise deny. Those who have ears to hear know that heaven is about to speak. Luceros, write in the comments, "Virgin Mary, do not leave me alone." These words are more than a gesture. They are a seal of faith. They are the key that opens doors to the invisible. A silent cry that reaches the heart of heaven. September 13th will be like a sword that cuts history in two. And each of you will bear witness. The earth will shake, the heavens will open, and in that instant the veil will fall. There will be no excuses. There will be no neutrality. Everyone, absolutely everyone, will have to choose between light and shadow. And until that day arrives, only one thing can sustain us: prayer. Not a routine prayer, but a fervent, powerful prayer that springs from the depths of the soul. Lord of heaven and earth, in your hands we put our lives. If the day of the test comes, don't let us down. Give us the faith of the martyrs, the calm of the saints, and the strength of the angels who fight in your name. Virgin Mary, Mother of silence and consolation, cover us with your cloak in the dark hour. May our homes be a refuge that our children do not fear, and may our hearts not stray from the light. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. May your wings of fire surround us. May your sword break every shadow, and may your cry resound in heaven and earth. Lord, do not leave us behind. Make us firm stars that they shine even in the darkest night. Amen. Brothers, sisters, my beloved Lucifers, thank you for staying this far. Thank you for listening, for praying, for sharing this message with others. You don't know how much good your gesture of faith does. Every time you subscribe, like, or leave a comment, you are pushing this word further than you can imagine. September 13th is near, and what is coming will shake hearts, homes, and nations. Stay vigilant. Don't leave your lamp without oil. And remember, this is just the beginning, because what is about to be revealed in the coming days will shake history even further. And you will be a witness.